Good afternoon, and we'd like to welcome everybody to our work session. First of all, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Next on the agenda would be the approval of the agenda. Can we get a motion?
So moved.
Adam?
Mr. Ely?
Yes.
Mr. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Akery?
Yes.
Mrs. Roundtree?
Yes.
Chairman Jefferson?
Yes. Now we have the invocation by our county administrator, Mr. Don Robinson.
Good evening. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for this opportunity to come together. We thank you for blessing us throughout this day with such a beautiful day. And so we thank you that our board members are assembled around the table so that they can discuss and deliberate and consider and make decisions that are in good keeping with government and in keeping with those things that will benefit the citizens of this community. We ask that you continue to bless our public safety officials, those who serve us in law enforcement, fire, rescue, EMS, and our county employees who serve the community and the public at large. We ask that you continue to bless our community, bless our farmers as they await a harvest, and bless our community as people go about doing those things that are productive and going about their livelihoods. We ask that you continue to bless us as we will be a blessing to our community. In your name we pray. Amen. You would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Now we'll move on with the county administrator's report.
Yes, sir. Mr. Jefferson, the board members, the first item up tonight is a presentation from our audit firm, Robinson Farmer Cox, and I'm going to ask if the representative would come up with regard to the county's annual comprehensive financial report.
Good evening, and my name is Aaron Hawkins. I'm the partner in charge on the engagement for the audit. Thank you for having me here tonight. And at this point, I've got the PDF of the ACFR in front of us here on the screen. There's a PDF circulating as well. And I'm kind of just going to get to, I guess, the process itself for this year. There was change in turnover in finance staff that created definitely a delay. Nothing that the new staff did that was wrong. It was just a complete change in who was in this department and picking up things that they hadn't been around before. Not just one person left, but several from that department. So we weren't able to do our field work in the fall like we normally would. Around December 31st, New Year's, is when your trial balance was available for us to begin our audit, and at that point we're trying to work on things as we can within our schedule that we have between January and now, and definitely took longer than I anticipated. I do apologize for that, but we did the best that we could to fit it in with our schedule that we already have during that time of the year. I will say, even though there was that delay, the audit itself went fine. It went really well, actually. Maybe the best all-around audit that we've had, just because I think this is the fourth year we've done it. It seemed like there's always been, whether it was at the school board or somewhere else, like we've always had some sort of complications in getting to where we wanted to get. But this year, I mean, the numbers themselves were great. The school board was great. County numbers were great. They did a great job of preparation. It was really just, that start time when we can actually get our hands on it to start, trying to fit it into our schedule. The other piece too also was creating this document. So the finance department here at Olive White has always prepared this 300-page document with software here at the county, and around the time that we got that trial balance around New Year's, it was kind of, we had a conversation where it was like, hey, we kind of need you all to do this if you can, and I said that we could, and a lot of hours, a lot of time went into it, just because there's so many things that have to reconcile and agree throughout this report. You can't, it's not just a matter of typing away from page 1 to page 296. There's Just a lot of things that have to be done correctly and have to agree, and several times it's to the point of tears almost trying to get this thing put together. But I was very, very happy to get to the point where we did. And year 2 should be a whole lot smoother than year 1 was. There's just so much legwork that goes into creating this initial document from scratch. But to get into the report itself, I'm going to start on page 1 of this report, which is our auditor's report. You see our name and at the top, Robinson Farmer Cox, and it contains our audit opinion. And based on the testing that we've done, we have what's called an unmodified opinion, which means that the financial statements that follow, these pages with our name at the top, Robinson Farmer Cox, it means that the pages that follow this can be relied upon to be materially correct based on the testing that we've done as your auditors. There was new accounting standards implemented this year as well, just to add another piece, another thing that kind of caused a little bit of a even further delay in getting to where we wanted to get was the implementation of GASB Statement Number 101, which we talked about at the bottom of this page 1, on compensated absences. And so compensated absences is your accrued leave, accrued vacation, sick, and historically, basically how you've always had what's called compensated absences. Really, you would just take everyone's bank of their hours as of June 30th, multiply it times what their hourly rate would be, and basically you calculate what you'd have to pay everyone if everyone left the county on June 30th. That's how you used to calculate compensated absences, more or less. But now, with this new standard, there's a lot more that goes into it about calculating what's most likely to be used of this balance, and a lot more calculations based on historical data. And so that change was implemented during the year, and we also had to implement it as at the beginning of the year so that you had a apples to apples from beginning to end. So that was the new accounting standard implemented during FY25. I'm going to skip very much farther ahead just because I typically just talk about the pages that really have our name, Robinson Farmer Cox, at the top, which would be page 216, and it's Adobe page 285 if you're looking at an Adobe file, so the Adobe 285, but page at the bottom is 216. And this is our report on internal compliance and state compliance for the county. And if we had findings to report, we would report those in this section. And we did have one finding to report, and we identified that on this page 217. It is finding 2025-001, which we'll elaborate on a little bit further in the pages that follow. On page 218, and Adobe page 287, this is our report and our opinion on federal compliance work that we did for the county. If we had federal findings to report, we would identify those here. We had a federal finding in FY24 and 23, I think, related to cafeteria. And in FY25, there is no federal findings for the county. And then on page 225, this is where we identified that finding 2025-001. And this finding, and we talked about this a little bit also with FY24, I think at that point maybe it was, I can't remember if it was a finding or a management letter comment that we had, but basically just stating that under new state compliance, the county has to confirm their bank balances on a quarterly basis. The Virginia Treasury Board puts out balances and get those from the banks that have all public deposit funds, and they put those balances out on the web, and the county, a representative of the county, is supposed to go out and confirm those balances. I will say the school board, I believe, did confirm theirs during the year, but at the county, those accounts were not. I am happy to say we've started working on the FY26 audit, and I have been sent from the treasurer files that show that this has been happening for FY26. So there has been corrective action for FY26. But for FY25, no one was confirming those balances for the county bank accounts. And then on the last page, this is where we talk about some prior audit findings. So, and I talked earlier about how we had federal findings in FY '24 and '23, I think, for school board. And then this year there were none. So this is the page where we talk about prior audit findings. So this identifies 2024-001. And we talk about what happened and what our recommendation was. And then at the bottom of that, it shows what's the current status. Did this happen again, or was there corrective action? And there was corrective action in FY '25, and this was related to the free and reduced meal application process at the school board. So they were able to make corrections in the process to remedy what was happening in prior years. I do also have a separate management letter, and in that management letter, we typically make you aware of other internal control items, things that we come across that maybe don't rise to the level of being in the report as a finding. Although I do have the first item is also, it was a finding, but just felt it probably would be appropriate to also have it in the management letter as well, which was on the security for public deposits requirements and how those bank accounts weren't being confirmed. And then, let's see. Actually, this second item, I hate that it's even on here. I've got to remedy this. There was initially we thought that there was a deficit cash balance, but really all that is, I've talked to the folks at the finance department, it's in investments. So you can completely disregard. I think I have an outdated version of this management letter. We talked about that. I'm embarrassed that it's on this thing right now, but it's no problem at all. We were able to figure out that they just keep balances in the LGIP, so there is no deficit balance.
Sorry, what page are you on?
This is on the management letter. This is not in the report. This is a separate management letter that we just issued to talk about internal control improvements, things like that. And in the initial draft that I had sent, we thought that there was a large, the general funds portion of cash seemed like it was in the red. But the thing is, it was just that it's got LGIP money, not cash. So there's nothing there at all. Then the last item that we do have on the management letter that is worth noting is that there was an error in the utility billing rate test that we did. So this was for services greater than 50,000 gallons. The rate that was in the system was not being used by what was approved. So the rate that was approved was $7.75 per gallon. However, when we did our test, $9.92 per gallon was being used. And this was only for services greater than 50,000. I think when we do these tests, we test different various levels of utility billing, and I think everything below that was just fine. It was just in this isolated instance of services greater than 50,000 gallons, the incorrect rate was being used, and I believe that has been corrected at this point. All right, that is it. That's all I have to go over with you this evening. I'm glad to try to answer any questions that you have for me.
All right, any board members have any questions? Or you need a little time to digest this and
Was that utility rate issue across the entire Western Tidewater Water Board, or just an Isle of Wight County specific error? Just remember, Don, at those meetings we talked about.
That was specific to us.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, just specific to
Yeah,
Isle of
the
Wight County.
thing you're talking about was a different error, but yeah, this particular one was specific to us.
So we randomly test different months and different customers who pay utility billings, different amounts, different sizes, and just so happened that particular size, we identified that problem.
So does that problem affect any of the customers? Do we have anybody that would apply to?
Oh yeah, I mean that's how we identified it. Yeah, so we probably test 25 or 40 random customers, and so
How many customers were affected by that error?
I don't know that information specifically. We can try to find out, but I do remember that happening a couple of years ago, and then it was corrected.
Is that a refund type situation? What does that look like?
Again,
I think it's, once it was identified, I think they credited the,
It's a very small amount overall.
That's been taken care of, is what you're telling me.
yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
that's the answer I was looking for. There were some people affected and it's been taken care of.
yeah,
They've been credited.
large water users.
Yeah, I believe
Oh, no doubt.
from what I know, it has been taken care of.
But that was more not so much this as it was for anybody watching, wondering, not knowing how much water they use maybe. I don't know. Anyway, thank you.
Well, an average homeowner isn't going to be at 50,000 gallons.
No. But then again, A lot of people don't know how much water
Right.
they use.
Sheila?
Yeah, good.
No questions.
Okay. We appreciate you, and I like the word you said, this is the best audit that the county has presented in some time. We would like to congratulate our staff for a job well done, and congratulate you for at least identifying the minor deficiencies and allowing our county to correct those deficiencies. So once again, thank you, and have a great night.
Thank you, sir. You too.
We'll move on, financial advisor.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I want to invite Mr. Jimmy Sanderson to the podium. As you will recall, a few months ago, Mr. Sanderson was here representing Davenport and Company to provide some information to you all. And we wanted to update that tonight in anticipation of potentially going to the bond market, but also in anticipation of potentially being able to, implement the 1% sales tax levy. And so I think that the information tonight will be helpful to the board in terms of both of those issues.
Thank you, Don. Again, Jimmy Sanderson with Davenport and Company. We are financial advisor to the county. And Don's correct, obviously. We were back here in March. We did a sort of a larger financial review that we do periodically for the county. And one of the things that we wanted to then do was look at the capital analysis and see how we were going to fund some projects going forward. We wanted to wait a little bit for the General Assembly to get their budget done and allow us to make some assumptions that we needed there too. But so I'm glad to be back, and we put this together. I think leave it obviously to you all, but make the presentation, obviously ask any questions you want, but we're happy to come back, make further tweaks to it if you'd like us to as well, and show you what might look like. So let's go. We're going to hit on a few things here, your existing debt profile, what the capital improvement plan that you've approved looks like going forward. We're going to show what all of that would look like if we were to layer that in over time. What we call your debt capacity analysis, which really just looks at your policies that you have in place and seeing if these future bond issues that we're looking at, you still fit within the policies that you as a board have set. Debt affordability is takes it one step further, which is, we might have capacity for it, but can we afford it, right? So how much of an impact is this this capital improvement plan going to cost us going forward? And then we'll look at next steps and timeline. So your debt profile, you'll see here, this is principal and interest on all of your debt. And you can see if you look in the far right, you start in 27 at $15 million, just shy of $15 million principal and interest, and then it's what we call sort of a step down structure, which is good because it provides you some capacity going forward, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, capacity going forward if you have to borrow for additional projects in the future. So one of the things that we're going to talk about is how you're going to pay for projects in the future. So I just want you to remember that your current budget's at $15 million in FY27, and if you keep that budgeted level going forward, that's where you would create capacity for new projects as your existing debt service drops down, and you can backfill it with new debt. One of the things I wanted to point out, which is good, I mean, you're paying down $10 million, just shy of $10 million worth of principal each year. That's great. Again, that means that you're paying back your debt quickly. That allows you to layer in some new debt going forward and still be within your policies. This is an analysis that we've kept for the county for a number of years, just to break out the differences between the uses of your debt that you've issued. General fund, which is just the county generally, then the schools, and then the utilities. So a total of just shy of $140 million of total debt outstanding as of June 30. One of the ratios that you have is debt to assessed value. And we talked about this when we were with you in March, just measuring your total principal debt outstanding versus your taxable assessed value of property in the county. Pretty standard a ratio to look at for local governments. You have a policy of 4%, you're well below that, 1.5%. You may recall we included on the right some medians of other rated localities in Virginia and then across the nation. And you're right in there in that AA category. That's 1.37%. The county's at 1.5%. Debt service to expenditures. Again, this is a measure of what percentage is your annual debt service to your annual expenditures. And there's some adjustments we make to that, but this is a policy that you have in place right now to cap that at 12%, and you are just shy of 9.5% currently. The capital plan, you all probably know this better than me. We went back and looked, and this is your full 10-year CIP. This piece, we broke out the schools here. This is everything except schools. So the total here is 60 million, just north of 60 million of bond funding that you have over this time period. Your total is about 125 million, so about half of it you're projected to propose bond issues to fund them. The schools, and there are a few projects in here, obviously you all know about them, but the schools projects, the total CIP is 121 million. Right now we're proposed to bond fund just north of 100 million of that over this 10-year period. The debt associated with this is really within the first 5 years as well. And that's, I'll just point out, it's Westside Elementary in FY 27 and 28, that totals $70 million. And then you've got SHS renovations out in 2030 and 2031. Now you do have, we did put in here for Westside, you've got a $14 million grant from the state, so we took that into account as well. So again, debt capacity analysis, here's the projected bond issues going forward. We probably would put some of these together and not issue every year, but for this analysis, we've just assumed a separate bond issue each year for each of them. You can again see general fund goes out full 10 years. The bond issues for the schools really only out through 2031. Your policies, when we layer in all of that debt, so all of the school debt, all of the general fund debt is assumed to be issued over time. The debt to assessed value, you're still well under your policy. You're at 2.5%. It's projected out in 2031. That's the peak, and then it would start to come down. Debt service to expenditures, it's still shy of that 12%. It peaks in 2032, and 2033, and then begins to drop down as well. So you're right up to your cap on debt service to expenditures. So you're within your policies, right? And so now we're going to talk about the cost. One of the things that we were waiting to hear from was the state on the 1% school option sales tax, and understand that the board authorized a referendum that's going to take place in November. So we were looking at your historical 1% sales tax production. Right around 3.9 million or so. There's some things that are left out of it, so there's a little bit of estimating in there. You're going to see here we're assuming 3.5 million, so we haircut the 3.9 million down to 3.5 in our analysis just to be safe. If the voters were to approve this in November, if you could get the certification in time, you could have your meeting in December. You've got a December 10th meeting already, and in which case you have to adopt an ordinance at that point. And then the tax can take effect 120 days. The first month it's 120 days outside from that adoption of that ordinance. For this analysis, we assumed that you would be able to adopt it in December. If you don't, and it moves into January, it would just slide the date then when we would start to receive revenues. So let's go a little bit to some of the scenarios that we ran. we were kind of curious to see how these would work out. The first scenario is just looking at the general fund debt only. No new 1% sales tax, just the general fund, not including schools. And we assumed, again, just north of 60 million, 22-year term, level debt service, 4.5% interest rate, which is a little above market, but close. And we assumed 2 years of interest only for that one. The next scenario is schools only with the 1% sales tax as a revenue to the county to help offset that debt. Okay, again, 100 million, same thing, 22 years, 4.5% level debt service, and 2 years of interest only. The reason we did 2 years of interest only here was we wanted to bank some of the dollars and make sure that the sales tax revenue was coming in as we thought. So we gave ourselves a little cushion there. And that's the same reason we did it. We wanted to compare scenario 1 to scenario 2, so that's why we did it there. Scenario 3 would be our typical funding of projects, which is there is no 1%, it doesn't pass, for example. In the normal course, if we can, we'll issue our debt for 20 years and begin to repay principal immediately, so that's what we're assuming here. No interest only period, again, 4.5% interest rate. And the final scenario 4 is really the reality, which is general fund debt and the school debt, and if the 1% passes, we're going to count that 1% revenue, okay? And again, 160 million, that's everything, level debt service, 22 years, 4.5%. So this is a summary of some spreadsheets that are in the way back that you can look at to put yourself to sleep at night. But the basic impact is obviously the general fund, because your debt service drops down so quickly, the general fund could easily pay for the general fund debt over the next 10 years without having any impact on your budget. And we've converted this, maybe we hadn't had this discussion with all of you, we've converted the impact into 1 penny on your real estate tax. So 1 penny on your real estate is worth about $700,000. And so what this is going to show you is as your debt service increase, as you issue bonds over time, and we go above our $15 million current budgeted debt service, this is the additional revenue that you would need to create. So in the first scenario, you wouldn't have to increase any revenue at all. Scenario 2, which is just schools, what we were looking at here was to see if that 1% additional sales tax would pay for the schools by themselves, right? And it doesn't. It would require you to increase some additional revenue in the future if you had that 1% sales tax. When we combine everything together, which is the way we operate, and if the 1% sales tax doesn't pass, in order to fund this this plan, it would be north of 10 pennies on your real estate tax rate. So that's $7 million of additional debt service that you would be taking on over time. And that would impact us pretty quickly too. And so you can see here, we've broken it by year, penny and a half in 28, 3.5 pennies in 29, and then there's not another big one until 31. That's when that second school project comes online. But a total 10.5 pennies over the life of it. Scenario 4, again, we're having that 1% sales tax, so we have that additional 3.5 million of revenue. And in this case, there's a 1.75 penny impact, and that doesn't occur until out in 2037, 38 and 39. So much less impact. Again, keeping in mind that we have to keep our debt service budgeted at where it is now, and we would have to use the 1% sales tax monies as they come in. That can only be used for schools, which is another reason we looked at the general fund by itself. It can pay for itself without having additional revenues put toward that debt. So the 1% obviously is a pretty big difference here. Next steps and timeline, just want to sort of talk through that a little bit. as we go through, and this is where I was talking about August, September, happy to come back for additional sessions if you want to look at some different scenarios as well, obviously. But if we're going to look out to a December this year, maybe it's early next year borrowing, just depending on how the timing works out. We would work through the summer until you got to the referendum. Obviously, that's a big decision and will impact you on how and what projects you take on going forward. At least my understanding is that these are projects that the school projects are ones that certainly are in your CIP and that you're looking to do. If the 1% sales tax passes, again, that's where you could adopt as early as December if the timing works out with the certification of the election. And we could price bonds toward the end of the year. Again, if the certification doesn't take place till a little bit later, we could always slide everything into the first part of next year as well. So during that time, we would be working with your bond counsel on your bond authorization, credit packages, talking to the rating agencies, and letting them see what our plans are as well. So I'll just point to you so you've got it if you look at it later. We were able to use some of the state's data on the sales tax historical numbers. And that's what you see in that first appendix. And again, the middle portion shows what your historical 1% local option sales tax has been. In 25, it was $5.9 million. We also show the growth rates in there. We have assumed a growth rate of 2.5% in our analysis. And you can see that it's typically growing by a lot more than that. Again, want to build in a little bit of conservatism in our analysis. The far right is where we're pulling data from the state to haircut certain things. There's groceries and personal hygiene items are not subject to this additional 1% tax, so that's where we tried to do that a little bit. And then again, I told you on the far left we were looking at 3.9 million of total revenue, but in our analysis you'll see a $3.5 million number going forward that's grown at 2.5%. The following pages are specific cash flow analysis for each of those scenarios that's the backup to what we call the penny analysis that we showed you earlier. So, Mr. Chairman, it's a lot of stuff there. I think this is the slide that we tried to focus it down to you so you can see the considerable difference with and without that 1% sales tax dollars.
Right. So and the board members have any
You
input?
said no groceries. Restaurants, is that considered food?
Restaurants, prepared food is part of the tax. It's take and go. Grocery stores is not part of it, is my understanding.
Okay.
You may know better than me.
I think that's what I
Yeah.
understand.
So we need to, actually as a board, we need to move ahead with the, trying to get the referendum on.
Yes, sir. So you have already taken the necessary action to put that into motion. If you recall, you've adopted a resolution with the ballot language, and that was
orders.
approved by this board.
And the courts entered the order.
Yeah.
He may have missed that meeting.
You did. You were on vacation.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. You were going to call
Oh,
in
I'm
and you
sorry.
weren't able to. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay,
We already did that part,
okay.
so we're good on that.
I guess maybe it should be said, is my understanding, this body's not supposed to take a position for or against the referendum, if you will. We're supposed to stay neutral on it, correct? I guess that's-
Essentially, you're
maybe
not
you're worried about it.
allowed to promote one side or the other. You can provide information,
Right.
but not
I just
take a
thought it was
position, as you said.
Good opportunity to bring that up.
Exactly.
And do we have the education PR plan out?
So I was going to talk about that in just a second.
Okay.
I just want to make sure you covered any questions that you
All
had.
right, so my question about this is, what if we don't need 101,000 to pay for the CIP? Because I think even since we adopted our 10-year, or the 5-year CIP that covers through 2031, with the SCAP grant, the cost of the school, since an elementary school, not a middle school, the borrowed amount will probably be about 45,000 plus 30,000 for the Smithfield High School reskinning, which would make 75 million, not 101 million. So that I'm imagining would change your projections a lot.
Absolutely, yeah. And the way we typically do this, we will be able to do this specific analysis historically, whenever you've wanted to borrow and you've thought about a new project. And so whether we do it, on an annual basis, your CIP is going to change, but we can also do it just for the one project that you're talking about doing now, if it's something that you as a body are set on going through with, right? We can come back and say, let's run these numbers just with your next project. So whether it's 45 million or whatever the number is, we can do that too.
So there's no advantage if you're looking at the 5-year horizon or runway. You're saying there's no advantage to borrowing the whole, let's call it 75 million at one time. You do it by project.
So you can do. You certainly. I would suggest that you're borrowing for all of any project that you do, any one project that you do. So you can only borrow 3 years out. You have to reasonably expect to spend the money within a 3-year period, and there's even some tests on how much you have to spend in that 3-year time period as well. So when we borrow for local governments, we usually look to see what are your projects out the next 3 years or 2 years, and we'll fund that in a transaction just to save transaction costs, so you're not borrowing every year.
I would note that one of the things you might want to consider is that for some items outside of the school projects, sometimes it's advantageous for you to borrow the money up front because you can advance the payment and pay for something today that's going to be more expensive to you tomorrow. You might recall we've had that situation with a couple of items with fire apparatus where we could prepay, save a couple $100,000 on the front end. Well, actually save it on the back end, but because we were able to prepay. So, that may be one thing you might want to consider.
Anyone else?
So there's two variables, and I'm scared to think out loud, but here we go. Two variables that there's just no way to telling, and that is a reassessment would change your dollar amount on the penny, correct?
Right.
And then, as we learned, because last time we went to the bond market, it was very, we would have loved to have gone ahead and borrowed money for this school too, but
Right.
you had to get things going in a certain amount of time, et cetera. But there's also a chance, good Lord willing, that I forget the percentage on here, but it's substantially higher than last time we borrowed, that you may be able to reorganize your debt later on.
Yep.
And realize the savings in 2030, I forget where we were. It's kind of what we did to give us some wiggle room to where we're even able to consider this school now. So those are the two variables that nobody really knows the answer to, correct?
We assumed a 1% growth of that $700,000. So that's a conservative assumption as well, because
And that's based on the assessment or based on growth?
the assessment, just the assessment. So new growth would be even more additive to
Right.
that as well. The interest rate, again, we would rather plan for a higher number and have it come in lower. You do have the ability to refinance debt. It's usually a 10-year period that you can't go in and refinance it. But after that 10-year period, you can go in and lower your costs if it makes sense, which is what we did when we had extremely low interest rates, which worked out well. Yeah.
So some time ago, we did go through smoothing our debt for the county, but it wouldn't be advantageous to us to do it now because we are paying down so much of the debt at one time.
That and the interest rates on your existing debt are all very low.
Okay.
Yeah. We'd be borrowing at a higher rate today than your current borrowing rates.
The way you termed it was once in a lifetime.
It was really it was once in a lifetime. At least mine.
Okay. You good? Everybody good?
Okay.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
well, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So, to Vice Chairwoman Roundtree's question. I want to talk just briefly about perhaps our strategy as it relates to marketing or getting the word out with the cautionary note that we just talked about. I'll forego the background because we just talked about that in terms of you all adopting the resolution. Just so this may be more for the public's benefit than yours, but just so everybody's clear, this is the ballot question that we anticipate people will have to consider in November with regard to the authorization to levy a general retail sales tax at a rate not to exceed 1%, with those revenues to be used solely for capital projects for new construction or major renovation of schools for this county. And then it goes on to note that that time frame would not go past June 30 of 2046. And that takes into consideration the 20-year span from the time of the adoption of the resolution that you did back in June. That's it. So I was in a meeting yesterday, and I want to point this out because I think it's beneficial for you all to know that we are not going down this path alone. At this point, York County, the city of Newport News, and Portsmouth, their councils and Board of Supervisors respectively have all adopted the appropriate resolutions and probably have already gotten everything in front of their courts to get this item on the ballot. It's my understanding that the city of Norfolk called a special meeting or has a special called meeting to consider the same because they're probably rushing now because they have to do this by what, about this time next week?
Yeah, I think they have about 4 days to play with
Yeah.
to get it on the.
One tonight, won't they?
I think their meeting
I
is
think
tonight,
tonight,
yeah.
Which I think gives them 4 days to meet the timeline.
So, at that point, there will be very likely 5 communities in Hampton Roads that are working toward the same objective. There's some benefit in that we can collaborate, share information, and hopefully leverage one another's information to help to educate the public. Now, that's the upside. The downside is when there's negative or bad information that gets out in one community, it impacts all of us. And if you've been paying attention to the local news media, TV media, over the last few weeks, there's been a couple of stories, some balanced, some not so much. And so the challenge is for all of us to be able to take note of that, make sure that we are putting accurate information out that helps our citizens make a good decision in November. With that said, there's a few things that I think we can do to that end. One is to provide information to key stakeholder groups within the county. We've already done some of that. There are some citizen groups that have been formulated. We have coordinated with them. We've provided them with some basic information. I've also kind of given them a cautionary note that don't get too far ahead of us because we were anticipating the presentation tonight, which would provide us much better information for us to share with the public and much more comprehensive information for us to share with the public about what that 1% might look like, what the impact on not only the budget might look like, but the impact on taxpayers themselves. And so we intend to continue to feed that information out to the public. And a couple of things that we are going to be working toward, and one is outreach to our civic organizations, to homeowners associations within the county, and any other groups, quite frankly, that'll allow us an opportunity to speak. So we'll be doing that outreach over the next few weeks to try to get on their schedules, on their agendas, on their calendars, so that we can have those conversations. Now that we have good information, we can package that up in a way that is hopefully understandable, but also that gets the message across to our citizens about the impacts of an increase in real estate tax rate versus a potential 1% sales tax increase. In doing that, though, we will, as I noted earlier, need to continue to coordinate our messages with both local and regional partners. We've already reached out to the Chamber of Commerce and some other local entities to help us get the word out to their constituencies. It'll be as important for our businesses to understand this as much as our citizens, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who have to reprogram their cash registers or make sure that the funding is appropriately transmitted to the state. And then lastly, we want to take every opportunity to leverage both traditional and social media to get the information out. So we'll be gearing up to do that in the next couple of weeks. Now, I do want to compliment the Smithfield Times, which is part of our local media, on just some very preliminary messages that they put out there in support of the 1% sales tax. But again, this needs to be much more comprehensive than just a couple of news articles or a couple of stories. And so I think that the best way to do that is it's going to be face-to-face communications, or at least presenting to groups where you can actually have dialogue, answer questions, and provide feedback that people can hopefully use. But we are open. If you all have other suggestions or thoughts on that, we would love to hear that feedback. But that's kind of the strategy that we're going to deploy, and the things that I'll be having staff work on over the next few weeks.
I think it'd be a good idea. I know Mr. Illy and we had talked about having a joint town hall meeting. And maybe we could set a date and have you or some other persons come and present. And hopefully we have a large volume of people that would attend.
We can certainly do that. Obviously we can get some dates on the calendar, find out a venue that works. If you're going to do it jointly, but if we want to do it separately, we can work on that as well.
We had, of course,
Yeah.
my district runs up to his district up in that area.
Absolutely.
And that would help get part of mine from that point up, and then I might be able to help some down lower in the southern end. Maybe get somebody to come back and do that. As well as being Winslow, Zuni, and Carswell. Maybe do a joint one there, like at, maybe at the County Center.
We need a few town hall meetings.
Yeah,
on this.
yeah,
I
I-
think this will
that-
allow us to tackle this subject and then approach other issues that people have for the next ones after this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we are hopeful to be able to do all of that outreach
Yeah.
to the community.
So,
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say, now, I want to preface all of that because certainly after Tuesday night, people are going to be bombarded with messages on TV from political, entities. And so we have to maneuver in a way that does not overwhelm people or, just completely turn them off. So that's why I'm hoping we can have that type of face-to-face interaction with people where we can have some actual dialogue.
And if we do the town hall meetings and such, at least what I'd like to be involved in, this be part of the presentation. If that's where we spend most of the time, that's fine. If there's other issues, then we touch on those and move on those. Some people may already have their opinion on it either way, and that's fine, but they might show up for other concerns and those kind of things.
Yeah, well, obviously, we would hope for a positive outcome, but our objective will be to make sure that people have informed opinions.
Not trying to defer which way to go, but just give them informed information, they can make a decision.
Absolutely.
So this, as some people know, this is something that this board's been working on for years. It's been a legislative priority for many years, with the intent that we wanted our citizens to have the opportunity to either put the tax on themselves and people that are visiting our community, or not. We just thought that it was best for us to have that opportunity, as does other localities throughout the Commonwealth, correct? And what's interesting is, you know, I see people, and I get it, every time I turn around, it's $1 here, $1 there. But I think it's fair to say that if you talked about, you know, you asked about restaurants, or would that be part of it?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
So, you know, when I go to Newport News, or Suffolk, but Newport News maybe, and I eat at the restaurant, do I not eat at a restaurant because of the percentage? Do you know what how we compare as far as tax rate between any number of the cities and us?
Most of the
Give a
cities have
rough example.
slightly higher taxes, but I think we're comparable on the meals tax. The challenge with counties is that we're capped. Cities are not capped with some of those taxes, and so typically, they tend to be a little bit higher, but,
Franklin's higher than we are.
yeah.
But sales tax, I mean, you go to a hardware store or you go and buy items, it's considerably higher when you go over to a big box store over in the taxes, that is.
Now, sales tax is gonna be the same across the region, unless you go to the Triangle. I think they have a 1%, additional sales tax that we don't have, but
James City, York, and Williamsburg.
yes,
And they got that through their legislation, what, about 2 years ago?
yeah, a few years ago, yeah.
So we'll work on some dates, I guess,
Yeah.
for separate,
We,
different.
we will do some outreach to you all first to get those dates, and yeah, we'll start working on setting up those meetings. You know, we'll figure out which venues make the most sense.
Yep.
And, we'd love to get this show on the road.
Anytime except for Thursday.
So, again, I certainly appreciate any other feedback that you all have about groups that we may be able to reach out to within
Well, like
your
I said, I
respective
think if,
networks.
Joe, Mr. Eckert being, you know, in the Windsor District, and part of that coming up, I think the town center, that would cover all my area between what Mr. Jefferson was talking about, and it would cover a lot of your area also.
And I do
having
want to
it
move
town
Mr. Gardner,
center,
maybe
Yep,
at your
Mr.
Carrollton
Gardner.
Elementary.
And that would be a central kind of location where everybody could come in, plenty of room to have it. And that would cover a lot of area quick, if we get the word out.
Absolutely.
So I understand your town hall meeting strategy, but when will the actual written materials that have been created by, I'm guessing jointly, the schools and the county start to go out?
So the schools, we've talked to them, I think they probably will start distributing their information. Now, I don't know if they'll, my assumption was that they would do that when the students are back. I don't know if they're gonna do that prior to the actual opening of schools or not. I talked to Dr. Coleman yesterday, but I didn't ask about a specific date. We are also having conversations with the chamber. I've got to sit down with Kat just to refine a little bit of the information that they have, but they have a one-pager that's pretty much ready to go out the door. So there's been conversations about getting the data correct before we start putting stuff on the street, because the last thing we want to do is put information that's either not accurate, or you're saying one thing and Mr. Ely's saying something else or something different. We got to make sure we're all on the same sheet of music in terms of what's factual information.
Right.
When does early voting start? Mid-September? 45 days before election
That
day?
I don't know the
I
exact
think it's
date,
45
but
days,
yeah,
but I don't know the date.
So,
about mid-September.
mid-September?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would think that before then would be our
Yeah,
goal.
we should be ahead of that, but yeah, we don't, there's a delicate dance. There's a delicate dance. I can't speak for you all, But I will tell you that probably within the next couple of weeks, I will totally ignore any commercial that I see on TV. That is not what we want to do with this type of information. So we want to be timely, we do want to be effective, but we don't want to just beat people down with it.
Read. I'm good.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Our next item would be the public utilities overview.
Yes, sir. Mr. Forsythe is coming to the podium. You all might recall, we had some discussions with the town of Windsor a few weeks back and talked about utilities and some other things, but I think Mr. Akery had said, hey, this would be great to bring to the full board. So we've asked Dave to provide you all with kind of an update on the county's utility system and just provide hopefully what we think is some timely information for you.
Yeah, I should start by saying there's a big giant stack of slides here. I don't intend to cover all 50 of these slides. I know better than that. Really hope to get through about 10 of them, talk to you all about the general perspective, and then at the end, I can refer to some of those. Hopefully they're good reference information for you. So going to the, let me see if I can get this right. Okay, things I'm going to talk about to you. The standard, your drinking water program in your water system, the wastewater program, the system, then how our operations go, various components of that, then our maintenance and repairs, et cetera, and then talk about sort of our perception of a way forward for the county. So one of the unique things about Isle of Wight's system is that, most counties, they have one drinking water system, and they might have 2 or 3 sources, but it's one big system. We have 17 independent water systems here, and a lot of people don't get that. Even when I talked yesterday, we had a Tidewater Utilities Directors meeting, and every time I get into a discussion, those guys just kind of shake their head like, wow, that many. But we have 13 small independent systems. We have the Western Tidewater Water Authority, but that in itself is a combination of things. They have a deep groundwater well, they have a surface well, Norfolk. Then we buy water from Smithfield, we buy water from Windsor, we buy water from Franklin. So that's kind of a smorgasbord of all the stuff. I'll talk a little more detail about some of those components as we go along, but the other part of that is compliance testing, and I'll recognize Mr. Jonathan Gwaltney. He's our field operations guy. He has his hands full with keeping track of the water and sewer and all the testing. He's a water expert. We also have his deputies, more of our sewer expert, but they have an awful lot of testing requirements with so many different systems. A lot of other systems, you might have a reduced economy of scale. We don't get that economy of scale. And just for reference, slide 22 in the back, for what it's worth, that's a list of all of our systems and kind of gives you information on number of households and everything. And then slide 19 in the backup slides gives a breakdown of which systems are sampled for what and what the requirements are by time and what's tested. Moving on, groundwater wells. So we have 12 of those systems that we operate ourselves that are more or less the historic systems that we took over from smaller developments. 5 of those, because of the size of them, are required to be permitted by the state, and the testing requirements are different. And I'll list those right there. You can see them: Carsville, Days Point, Lawns Point, Rushmere, Sandy Mountain. Those have permits, so they have to be renewed periodically. That groundwater testing, groundwater monitoring, permitting is getting a lot tougher, a lot tougher. Then we have 7 other systems that, because they're small enough, we're not required to have permits. We still have testing requirements. We have to make sure they're operated correctly. But I will say this, that, a lot of them are really old systems, a lot of old components. And I'll give you a reference in a minute to the sheet we have in here to kind of summarize the amount of repairs we have to do on each system. And again, to try and give you an idea of, some of them are more problematic than others as far as repairs go. I popped on here the whole lead and copper thing because that's such big news. Everybody talks about it generically. Everybody in the United States is dealing with this EPA mandated thing that's been pushed down to the states. It's been pushed down to us. And for us, we did an initial assessment of where we might have a lead contaminated service lines, the lines going from our lines to homeowners and all. And we did that initial assessment, dug a whole bunch of holes trying to figure out where they were. Jonathan and his crowd, before I even got here, had dug hundreds of holes. Well, we submitted that thought we were all good. They came back and said, nah, you don't have enough information. So he gets to go out and start digging like 1,000 more holes over the next couple more years to try and better assess that. But the state, realizing how problematic this process is, they actually have kicked in and have a contractor that's helping us with the rationale and assembling the data, which has been pretty good. Part of that program, too, is that we're supposed to have a 10-year plan of going in and remediating the stuff that we potentially know is problematic. And part of that difficulty is because galvanized pipe, and I show that picture there intentionally because where you have galvanized pipe that's connected to copper pipe or lead pipe or copper pipe that's been soldered with lead stuff, you have to basically remediate potentially the galvanized pipe. And quite honestly, a lot of it's pretty old and in bad shape anyway. So we have to have a 10-year plan that gets us to recovering, replacing those, or clearly identifying and proving there was never any lead contaminated piping upstream of it.
How far to say a residence or a customer does this requirement go? Does it
All the
go?
way up to the edge of the house. Once it's under the house, it's their problem.
So even if it's on the other side of the meter?
Peter, yes, sir. So we've actually started that rather than wait. We already jumped on in like one particular area down by Beaver Brook where we had a bad pipe, tons of maintenance required by him and his staff, John Gwaltney here. We knew we were going to have to deal with it anyway. We thought we don't have a clearly defined program, but we know that's going to need to be done, and it's a maintenance problem anyway. So our first project was to pull that line out from behind a bunch of trees underneath of it, move it out. So we've already done our first project, and we expect to this year do another project in the Camptown area, another high visibility one.
So were you saying that the county is responsible for the piping beyond the meter?
Yeah, unfortunately, initially the program was set up 2 years ago when they first started talking about this, and I'm not going to pull Jonathan in there. He'll get even way more into the details than I will. But initially they were saying, oh, well, you might have to have a program where we might help you, and you have to finance people's repair work from there. And they've walked away from that more and more and said, you just got to fix it. You just have to take care of this. And they were talking about it on a phone call, a 2-hour phone call they had on Tuesday with across the state, the Virginia Municipal Drinking Water Association. They talked about that if you can even find one line that has lead in it, that you qualify for loans that their program that they're coming up with. So we're hoping to look into that, but you have to find one. Somebody said, well, how many you got to have? And the guy says, well, what do you mean? He says, well, if I have 1 out of 100 has lead in it, he says, if you have 1 out of 10,000, you're eligible for this program to apply for it and potentially. He says, but if you have no identified lead at all, you can have 1,000 galvanized pipes. But if you have none identified, you're not eligible for loans. You have to take care of it on your own and figure it out yourself. So
when you take your lead and copper samples, if it goes beyond the limit,
no, it's not even based on the sampling. It's based on us digging up and looking at pipes and have a statistical analysis done of have we done enough sampling of pipes to represent the whole area to determine if we had hits or not.
If I may, it's a probability statistic based on material they're piping. So they can't assume if it's galvanized, it's not lead soldered. You have to assume that may be a chance. So they have to replace the whole line of entirety.
Right. Okay, I'm gonna push along unless y'all want to hold me back. Talking about sewer now. Sewer, we have 41 pump stations, and actually slides 25 and 26 in your backup slides is a listing of all the pump stations we have. But all those pump stations end up either pumping to HRSD or the city of Franklin. And, you know, there's been a smorgasbord of pump stations and stuff built in the county over the years, and so we've inherited an awful lot. My personal aversion is to the first one there, complex wet well, dry well pump stations. These are where you have the big, deep, tank in the ground where the sewage collects in. You have another big, deep tank beside it with the wells way down in the hole, dangerous, trying to get big, heavy pumps out of there. It's problematic. Nowadays, we go with these dual submersibles where basically you can drop the pumps down into the sewage on rails. If something breaks, you just simply crank them out of there and repair them, and nobody has to go down into anywhere. Much more simpler. That's our county standard now that we're pushing out to everybody. And truthfully, nobody's really arguing with it. It's the right thing to do. But that's just sort of where we're getting into a standardization of expectations and stuff for the county. And I'll have a couple references to that later.
So the 41 pump stations that you're referring to there, they're ones that we, as you termed, inherited, where
Yep.
they've been turned over to the county at a certain time of a project, et cetera.
The newer ones though, like South Harbor, we took 2 on this year and 1 before that. So we've added several, but the newer ones are done very nicely. In fact, that's our standard. They're using a very good quality standard that's much more readily maintained, better quality, meets expectations way better, long-term durability.
And I'm certain it's a slide in here, but I don't know if you touch on it. So currently, does the county have a program that extends sewer to areas that are having issues? And I guess the DSDs is probably a good example of an area. We have these DSDs in the county, and a lot of those are in poor soil types, and we're putting homes on top of homes, a lot smaller lots, and that doesn't allow as many alternatives if they have a failing sewer system. Do we currently have a program that is
So,
pushing towards providing
not
service?
actively trying to extend it out. What I've got in here, I've got one slide where just 3 particular neighborhoods that we've looked at and the cost associated with those. They're big projects to add a full neighborhood. And so I've put a couple of
I look
those
forward to
later in
that.
here.
Thank you.
So, I want to point out, I just have to do credit, the fats, oil, and grease program. I just love that. I know everybody else is probably grossed out, but I just love that pipe there, that picture, because that really is what happens. I mean, people dump grease and oils and stuff down the pipes, and we just recently had, Alaway County has been noticed a violation by the state for having 2 sewer spills where it was definitely related to the pipe being clogged and the sewage flowed over and out into the stormwater pond because of grease clogging. And so we've gone through, cleaned those pipes out, cleaned those pump stations out and everything, but it's no small deal to bring a vac truck in and have to suck out long lines. Quite honestly, it's problematic. We have a good program manager, Phil Jones, very into this. He's a motivated guy. You can't get him to stop talking about the fats, oils, and grease program and doing it right. He's on top of it. We really do have a great guy doing this program for us. But anyway, let me, in slide 48 and 49 in the back are slides, and there's actually some notes along with that. I had to cut down his 15 slides to 2 to get them into the back of there for y'all to reference. Next thing, billing. So putting up here, as far as number of customers, we have 5,240 customers, and that's up from, I think when I first came, I assumed this role just about a year ago, but a few months before that when I started, I think the number was at 4,830. So with the opening of South Harbor and other areas, we're up to over 5,200 customers. Now that customers, they can be a combined water and sewer customer, they can be a water-only customer, or like in the town of Windsor, they can be a sewer-only customer. So that's the total number of accounts that our billing department deals with. We bill every other month. I'm sure y'all are aware of that. Backlog and cutoffs, that's worth noting. At any given time, we have about 150 customers that are behind or on payment plans to try and catch up, where they either stopped paying and got in trouble for whatever reason. But about 40 to 60 customers every 2 months, we have to literally go in and turn off their service to force them to address their past due payments or failure to pay their bill. And the last bullet there, it's important to note, is we have some real issues with one individual that Jonathan and his crowd have had to deal with, and the sheriff's now been involved with. We shut them off. We go back and check a week later. They've turned it back on themselves. We shut it off again. We go back a week later. They've turned it back on. We remove the meter and put a plug in. We go back and they've pulled the plug and connected again. We go back and they've done it a third time. So eventually we have to go in, pull the entire connection from the main line and backfill it and spray paint the ground so we can see if they've disturbed it in case they might dig it up. And this isn't unique to Isle of Wight, but it's just that consumes a lot of time. And so we put tampering fees on and charges for this. The problem is that sometimes these people are about to skate out of town. They've got eviction notices or other things. So it's hard to collect that money. And we need to, probably it's on us. And again, given Jonathan, Tori Rowland, who's our other person in our office, we're working much better to coordinate with the sheriff's office and have them go with us to try and preclude some of this happening. Just one of the challenges we have.
Speaking of utility billing, a number of years ago, this board had at request that HRSD start doing our billing, which was a service that they were already paying for, if you will. And I think, where are we at on that? I guess we're still in the queue for that. Because, for example, if you live in the town of Windsor, you're getting a bill from the town, a bill from the county, a bill from HRSD, and it'd be much easier if you got one bill itemized instead of trying to track down 3 bills. And anyway, and it's already a service that we're paying for, but that's been how many years now?
It's been a few, and they've essentially kind of put us on hold. So,
Recently, we've been working better with them. I will say this, they came to us and said, look, we got a lot of customers that are way behind on their sewer bills. Can you help us? We have an agreement to turn off service for them until they pay their bills. And that generally works pretty well. So they'll pay their HRSD bills, and HRSD's been very cordial recently. And we even had one very large business that Mr. Robinson's very aware of. It took a lot of effort, a lot of coordination with people at the state level to try and shut down a big business to force them to pay, and ultimately they realized we really were going to shut them off at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They paid their $47,000 bill immediately. So HRSD at least right now loves us. Doesn't say they're going to change us over to their billing system though. No, I haven't heard anything.
Are we gonna, is it not a possibility is there a later hang up than what it was originally? Because for the longest time, we were just in the queue and they would get to us eventually.
as far as I know, that's still the case, so, I mean, we can
I've heard
maybe
nothing.
look
We
into
will
it to
look
see if
into
there's
it,
some
yeah.
details
Yeah.
that we haven't been made aware of, but.
But I hadn't heard.
How'd the town of Smithfield get it?
I just assumed they were way ahead of us in the queue, because,
Well, when we approached this quite a few years ago, everybody wasn't on board. That's a good way to put it. I think is the best way to put
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And so it didn't happen. So it took some working, I think, with entities to get it to where the board was able to take action and say we would move forward. So.
Moving on, sorry. Just wanted to summarize real quickly. You know, we do have some stuff that we contract out. We do some stuff in-house. We're trying to push out and do a little bit more in-house with our folks. Given credit, our staff has made the point to renovate trailer and get our backhoe going, and we're renting a dump truck to start doing some of the more minor repairs ourselves because we can do them more efficiently. Plus, it's good for our guys to have the expertise of actually doing the work. And again, we have a couple staff members that are highly trained, came from other localities, that we're leaning on to help us get active and do a little bit more. But this is just a good reference list of all the stuff that goes on, and our in-house staff. I mean, if you think about 41 pump stations, if these guys go every other day to every pump station across this entire county to check it, take readings, how much it's pumped, you know, make sure the things are functional and everything, that's a lot of legwork. And if even one thing's broke and they have to stop and, you know, repair something, it becomes very problematic. And I will say this, the Windsor station, which I have a separate slide in here to talk about, the Windsor system is very intensive as far as keeping that going and issues. And we're working it right now and made a lot of progress, but there's different components of this that we really have to have guys that are willing to help each other out in different locations. We can't have guys that are dedicated to, oh, you're only going to do these 20 pump stations and the other guy's going to do the other 20. It's just not possible with a small staff. They have to do assistance to each other, which has been very good group. Something I want to highlight, though, is down at the bottom there, the clearing of gravity sewer blockages that I talked about. That's critical for us staying in compliance with the state, but also the camera inspections of sewer lines and manholes. That's not just for the existing system where we're supposed to do that regularly. I think something like 10% a year, camera our lines and our manholes, make sure they're good, but also for new construction. Many of these new homes that are built, our guys go out there with cameras, and after it's built, and they say, oh yeah, we're ready to go. We want to sell the house and let somebody move in, give us a certificate to occupy. Our guys go in and camera the lines from the street up to the house to make sure it's good. And we have more than an occasional time where the contractors drove backhoes through the yard or whatever, bent or broke the line down, and by our guys doing it, we've protected the homeowners and buying brand new houses from potentially having problems down the road that they might not realize for several years. So it's a good thing for us to ensure the system works right, and also so we don't have a homeowner calling us after 6 months saying, oh, you have to come fix my sewer. And we have to tell them, no, it's yours until it gets to our system. So anyway.
And Dave, if I could.
Yes, sir.
I don't want to steal your thunder, but, because you might have intended to talk about this in another slide, but I do want to at least make sure that the board's aware that we are investing in staff training to make sure that our staff is proficient at doing some of
Yes,
these
sir.
things.
There's a slide in here that summarizes some of the training needs. Let me see. I don't think I wrote that one down. Yes, slide number 16 actually just summarizes some of the recurring training that we have to do. Everything from, you know, confined space entry to utility locating to all sorts of things. So yeah, there's a significant investment to keep these guys at least minimally proficient, hopefully more than that.
Does it speak, I haven't looked at the slide, does it speak to the hours involved for the training? I
No.
guess the reason why I say that is, if one of your staff is in training, they can't exactly be out there working on the system and all, because it can only be one place at a time.
Well, I appreciate that comment. It's very good. Just last week, we actually, that VAC system in Windsor, we hadn't had anybody go to the training. It turns out how you operate the system is critical. And we sent 3 of our pump station mechanics. We took the risk, sent 3 of them to go do it. And part of the reason we were able to do that is because, to be honest with you, our pump station electrician's been around forever. And his assistant, more or less, his junior that works with the 2 of them, can almost do the job of the pump station mechanics. And we said it's worth the risk to get these guys trained to do the job better, and they were able to cover for them. Thank goodness we didn't have any big failures like last week. We'd have been in deep trouble. But part of it is also that contracted work that we have. We have a good contractor. I'm not going to drop any names here. We have a good contractor that's been able to help us out in a lot of times when we've had tough spots. And they're pretty Johnny on the spot responding, local guys. So good question. Let me jump on. Hopefully I'm not dragging too much. Okay, maintenance planning. This is kind of my, I don't want to say if it's my favorite thing, but it's something I feel really strong about, trying to plan and make good decisions about how you spend your money for maintenance. There's always more in utility systems. There's always more to be done than you can do. Everybody loves to drive the brand new Cadillac, but the reality is most of us are driving Yugos or old Volkswagen, and we got to figure out what we got to do to keep those things running and safe for our college kid to drive them back to school or whatever. That's my analogy. So we look at these things, and the big capital improvements plan that we talk about, that's generally projects where we know it's a big investment, it's where something's critically bad, or where we know it's going to take an engineer to figure out a design, something significant for us to go forward with. That's generally what we put under our capital improvements planning. And the way we do that, we look at, like I said, later in here, there's a list of where maintenance is done. We got together this year, the whole group, staff talked about our worst projects. We went through and scored the things that we needed to do worst and tried to categorize those to put worst first. And really, when I say worst first, it's what's most likely to collapse or have a catastrophic failure. And that's what we put as first and tried to address first. And there's some stuff that you'll see when we get to the capital improvement sheet that's not quite that, but there's good rationale for it not being there. But then also talking about the recurring maintenance planning, these guys have to go out there, like I said, service the things. Every year we spend $200,000. This is my sales pitch. The county administrator is going to be nervous, or not nervous, but not like me saying maybe, I don't know. We spend $200,000 a year for vac truck services, vacuuming out pump stations of all the grease and all. And people don't want to look in a sewer pump station, but we joke about there being surfboards in there, grease and stuff form into a hard thing that literally looks like floating gigantic surfboards in there. Sometimes a mat where it doesn't look like it's wet in there. And we have to have vac trucks suck that stuff out or suck that grease out of lines and all. So we spend $200,000 a year. And to be honest with you, luckily having that contractor on retainer more or less to do that keeps a lot of the stuff from getting worse. So for me, $200,000 a year, that's a heavy cost, but it's a requirement to keep stuff flowing. Or we have overflows in the state. That's it for us. I'm not going to go any further there, but the technical capability, urgency, et cetera, there in the bottom part, all weighs into how we decide what to do first, what to do next. Okay.
That was Dave's subtle pitch for a new vac truck.
I know it wasn't very subtle. He's tired of hearing me whine about it.
It's ironic. I think we've had that discussion about a vac truck, haven't we?
Yeah.
Is it in the CIP or no?
No, it's not.
Well, when we get to one of the slides, it's listed. Not this year's, no, it's not. Just want to summarize here and talking about priorities. If you look in that sheet where we talk about where repairs have been done and all, Camptown pump stations, there's 6 of them. They're very old, they're small. Some of them are collapsing. Concrete doesn't last forever. Fiberglass definitely doesn't last forever. But even the small concrete ones, when the walls start crumbling and cracking from, sewage when it sits in there without air and all, they'll form, hydrogen sulfide gases that'll eat up concrete pretty readily. And so nothing lasts forever. The Camptown pump stations, number 6 is our worst, and that's in this year's CIP, but all of them are in fairly poor shape that we're hoping to gradually get working on replacing those. Then I'm just going to hit a couple of these. Pump station 21, that's in Gatlin Point. That's the main pump station there in Gatlin Point. And the reality is there's a safety issue in there. We addressed the one at Eagle Harbor that had a similar problem where these pumps, that wet well, dry well I talked about, where there's a deep well down in the hole, getting a big heavy pump out of there when there's no clear crane to lift it out. I don't want my guys in there lifting and pulling around a crane, a pump that suddenly comes loose and a 1,000-pound piece of equipment smashed in between a wall. I don't want that to ever happen. And so, thank gosh, we're gonna be able to fix 21 and have it to the point where we'll have a lifting point from out of the roof, or we'll put a roof opening in there where we can lift the crane, you have a crane to lift the pump out of the thing. But safety issues are a high priority for us. Then the vacuum system, Windsor, lots of stuff going on with that. Replacement of the pots. You know, the pots are like the little mini manholes that service 2 or 3 buildings. I know Mr. Healy knows it very well. Those are fiberglass. Now, 30 years old, you know, fiberglass, if you're a surfer, my daughter's taking surf classes this week, first time ever. We haven't lived near the water. And I was telling her she wanted a surfboard. I'm like, that thing will just deteriorate in a few years. You'll leave it in the sun. So for me, fiberglass doesn't last at all. It starts to deteriorate. They're deteriorating there. There's 300 of them in Windsor. And we're going through a system of repairing the worst ones that we know are cracked and leaking bad to keep that vacuum from being held. We're fixing those, doing some repairs in the pump station, improving how our operators operate. That's why they went to the training. And we're able, out of the 4 legs in the system, and there's a drawing in here as well of the Windsor system, the 4 legs, the blue line, we're able to pull the moratorium, and I have that in a later slide here, pull the moratorium out and say, yeah, they can start connecting that part of it because that part of the system's working well enough now. But other things, water projects, Launch Point's the only place where we have fluoride issues. That system works well, but it's old, it's corroded, piping's bad, and we don't want to wait till it fails, and then we totally are having fluoride in the water continuously. So we have a project this year we're trying to go forward with, replacing that skid mounted unit, that package of reverse osmosis treatment system, pull it out, pipe it better, and make it to where we can operate that better. And then on the Tormentor Creek, that's one of the smaller systems, independent well. It's so close to the Hardy line that it's just crazy for us not to connect it to it and make it, you know, where it would be Thomas Park, the school, and Tormentor Creek all be one connection to the Smithfield system in our tank. So we hope to make that happen too. It seems like a pretty easy connection point and get one less system to have to maintain the pumps and wells. Recovery.
For Launch Point, is it a problem with the pump down there? Because I got an email today that they are having low pressure throughout the days.
So Jonathan could talk in great detail, but without too much. Yeah, they've had the 2 wells that are there, they've had issues where if one of the wells isn't functioning well, if they have to run it on one system, one well, it becomes problematic. It becomes problematic for running the treatment system that's in there. And so, yeah, there's been some recurring things. I know he's had the well lining redone in recent years to try and improve it. But it might come a time in the next year or 2 where we have to just go ahead and replace a well to make sure we can maintain it. But none of the system's never been designed, even though there's fire hydrants out there, there's been a misconception that there's this massive amount of flow and pressure out there, and it's really never been like a supercharged high pressure system that's great for fighting fires. It's never been that. So
How well we know.
yeah, exactly. Anyway, I'll try and hit this quickly. The Windsor vac system, I've already talked about most of that and the things we're doing to try and do that. Pump station rehabilitation, that's where I'm talking about Camptown and trying to fix the worst ones first and have a list in there of which ones are worst. And then water valve system line, what that's about is every time we break, have a line break, like we had last summer, a line break out here at Brewers Neck Road or whatever. It's right by the side of the road. We couldn't find it. We looked all over the place for days. We were searching everywhere. And it was broke right beside the road, but it was flowing out in the grass. That was a big line. We lost a lot of water. We spent a lot of money on water that was wasted right there, and it's horrific. We were panicking. And so when we go to do a repair, we want to go to the nearest valve, cut off that valves on each side of that, fix that line, and repressurize it and go. The problem is a lot of the valves have been in the ground for decades. Nobody's ever operated them. And if you have any water valves in your house, you ever go under your house and you go to turn off a valve, and that thing's so rusted and corroded, or sometimes your water heater, you haven't tried to turn your water heater off until it starts to leak, and then the valve on top doesn't work. We have that with tons of valves. We really need to be going out and trying to exercise, they call it, work those valves periodically, find them all for one thing, and then exercise them. And quite honestly, when we exercise them, we'll find a lot of them are broke, and we can repair them. Because if we don't, when we have a break and say it's a 16-inch line, and we'd like to cut it off 200 feet away each side of it and only lose maybe 1,000 gallons of water, if we can't do that and the next nearest line valve we can turn off is a half mile away, we might lose 30,000 gallons of water or something crazy because of the size of the line, and because that's the nearest point we can cut off, and all the water's going to drown that line while we replace it. So this is one of those things that isn't real glamorous and glory filled, but it's something we really need to do to be doing this. And again, our staff, you have a good staff, you really do, but there's not enough of them to go and exercise every single valve in 17 different systems across this county, and also clean out and camera every sewer line and every manhole like we're supposed to do on a recurring basis. So
We had a discussion with the water line, this is the water system up in the Newport area, up there in that DSD. And when we looped that system and brought the line down Route 10, I thought I know there was an initiative, and I think there was actually some companies brought in, or a company brought in to help, for example, with fire hydrant maintenance. But it was discussed that a lot of those valves, they were scared to operate or scared to exercise because there was no redundant, the system wasn't looped.
Right.
I guess that was probably done to some degree, just not to the degree it needs to be done.
I can't say, maybe Jonathan knows, but from my perspective in the last year and a half, I was told at one point they did have an initiative to do that, but I haven't heard anything that we actually did that we've actually done any program to exercise valves.
I know it seems to me we paid a company to come around and do the hydrants at least once.
We still do yearly, north and south end. We have a company come in and they exercise the valves. And on the hydrants,
On
as
the
far as
hydrants
the mains
only.
go, that's usually been on the job of the utilities department to go out there and be able to do that. But we do have a yearly service.
And you can use hydrants for flushing. I mean, a big system where you have a good program and adequate staff. You don't have to be robust in staff. You can use the hydrants for flushing systems, would help the water quality too, where you don't have loop systems. I've had to do that a lot in the past, and you have to bleed a lot of water, and then people complain about seeing you running water on the ground till they see it pour out and turn brown for 5 minutes, and it looks like mud, and then it claims clean again, then suddenly they stop complaining. But anyway, move on. This is this year's program. The lead service line will appear in every year until we get through this, at least 10 years. The number may change based upon if we identify more lines that need to be replaced, or could go down if we get good statistical analysis that says, hey, you really don't have to remediate that many lines. But you can see those, the 3 in the top are water projects, the 4 in the bottom, or 5 on the 4 in the bottom. Yeah, 4 in the bottom are sewer projects. And then this is where, number 2, there's the vac truck, utilities maintenance facility. I have to say, it kills me, Smithfield has a vac truck. In the little town I came from, we only had 2,000 people. We had a used vac truck, and that thing is great to have. And, I have a number up there, $750,000.
That's a lot cheaper than a ladder truck, isn't it?
Yes, sir, exactly. But we don't save any lives, right? That's the argument.
Even cheaper than a water truck.
Yeah. But the reality is like with a vac truck and with our vac trailer and other stuff, we really need a place to put them to safeguard that stuff. The life of those things is absolutely related to where they're kept. If you park them outside, they absolutely will weather. Rubber O-rings and everything that's left outside in cold weather, then hot weather. You almost, to me, they're hand in hand, and that's a big number. I have a slide. The last slide in the thing is a picture with some information about a maintenance facility as well. But this would be my wish list. This is what I had down. I know, please don't laugh in my face.
But it's good that the citizens see that, some citizens probably would expect that you already have a facility, a large building, and all you'd have to do is just park the truck in
No,
it.
we don't. Now, I will say the beauty of it is, and I can go ahead and jump onto another slide here, but one of the things I talk about, the bullet down there, the 4th major bullet down there, staffing dispersed across 4 buildings. Well, as of today, I can say we took possession of our utilities building. We're moving in there. Jonathan and his staff have been in there. I've been pushing them extra hours, overtime, lunch times, putting together furniture, getting everything ready, but we've got the building. And the guys will be in there. Those trailers, those old ugly trailers, those guys have been working out for years that are, leak, and the air conditioning didn't work for him for a month. He was in the heat out there, didn't complain. In fact, he asked me, he says, well, should I get it fixed or not? I'm like, dude, it's gonna be at least a month, get your air conditioning fixed. But
He's out testing stuff. He's not sitting in his office.
I know, yeah, exactly. He's not working.
It's okay, I'll last.
But the reality is those are going to be gone the 13th. So next week, those trailers will be pulled out of there. We're going to have to scrape it off, do a little bit more landscaping and everything, but it'll be nice to have folks in there and having them centralized. We'll pull people from 2 trailers and 1 office in another building, all in that one facility. It will help centralize it. It makes for a better work environment. a lot of the billing and invoicing that they have to go to a separate building for to get done will all be in a centralized place, which will help an awful lot. It also gives them some storage space in there where a lot of the stuff that our guys run to buy stuff constantly, because we really have had nowhere to store it. We now have a storage room back in there. Hopefully we'll cut down the number of invoice and P-card reviews I have to do, and that Jonathan has to do, and that others have to do.
And we're hoping to be able to do a ribbon cutting on that building in the next few weeks, but we still got a little bit of
Right.
work to do on our end.
And I will say, it's been a challenge. That building was, I guess, originally estimated to cost about $1 million, I think. And Tori, who's sitting here, Roland's been a longtime employee. He does a lot of the maps and stuff that you see in here. He's the guy that keeps track of our systems, our ArcGIS stuff, and manages our E&S stuff as well. Tori serves as project manager overseeing that project, as well as he's overseeing our tank project. So kind of a combination of us overseeing it with the help of Public Works and their construction inspectors and our building inspectors. We got pretty good folks trying to make sure we're getting good value for our dollar. And ultimately, that service building we got for under $700,000. And I'm very pleasantly, pleased with it. A little rough at the end. Younger junior contractor took some work, and Tori had to spend a lot of time talking him through stuff, but it's been good. Rate study. Robert and I have talked a few times about the need to look at a rate study, updating that or whatever to compare what's going on. Recently, in looking at the rates, it's tough to describe to somebody who's taking water from a small system like, say, Smithfield Heights, and somebody's out there and they're asking you, why is their water bill so high? It's a hard discussion to try and explain to them that the cost of water from WTWA and the whole county affects them. They're like, this is the same water I've had for 22 years, but since the county has it, I'm paying gigantically higher. And I did have one lady tell me that. And I spent about 5 minutes trying to give her an explanation, which ultimately she just says, whatever, I'm being screwed, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, ma'am, I'm really sorry. We're really trying to do our best for you. And the quality of your water is good. We test it. We ensure it's right. And you get good quality water that you're drinking. And that's about the best we can walk away and hope to do. So a rate study, I think, would help us capture some of these costs and help y'all make decisions as far as what can be put into rates in a reasonable time frame without overly burdening your constituents. Okay.
The WTWA rate, though, is less than the town of Smithfield rate per gallon.
Is it?
Yeah.
I didn't think
I
it was.
compared it when we were doing budget and asked Michael Stallings. I have it in my text somewhere. I'll find it.
Is that the WTWA rate that we buy for versus what they bill for? That's different because ours, what we buy for, is not the rate we're charging.
Does that include their osmosis fee or whatever they call it?
8.75 per 1,000 gallons. So when I said the county rate is 8.09 per 1,000 gallons, is that what
Yeah, but
WTWA?
that's
That's
what
what
we
we
pay
pay. So what do we charge?
15, yeah.
We charge $15 per 1,000 gallons.
Or it's a graded scale for the
Yeah.
base rate, and then for up to 10,000 gallons, I think it is. And then it's graduated higher once you're above that or lower. And for bulk customers, it's different as well.
So we pay $8, but we charge 15.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, conclusion.
Take into account the subsidizing that we do in our operating budget for the system
Right,
itself.
that doesn't cover
So if
that.
you took away the subsidized, the operating budget,
It'd be
and
30.
put it on the backs of people that simply drink the water, plus the hearts,
The,
it'd be substantially higher.
yes, sir, absolutely. And I think that's worth noting. I think part of the reason for a rate study is not just so a justification to raise rates, but so we can share the information of here's what your rates could look like if we were really planning and paying for everything. And they push around the world, around the country, that, you should have rates set gradually increasing to cover every single cost or eventually build that into it. Very few municipalities are ever able to really, truly do that. In the really small towns, it's tough.
I hear you were talking about the lady earlier. I hear people saying, I guess I'm one of them too, never drink probably a drop of water of county water out of my spigot, but I'm paying for county water through my taxes.
This is Dave's conclusions. Truthfully, the Isle of Wight system, most of these systems have been on more or less like caretaker status. We've done what's necessary to keep them running. You know, I don't want to say Band-Aids and gum, but in some cases, it's almost been something like that. Some of these, and then there's a material slide here that tells you what the various systems or predominant materials of the main lines are made out of. Some of them are very old plastic, and some plastic lasts very good, but then there's a lot of very small diameter black plastic that breaks extraordinarily easy and costs a lot of effort and time to go and repair and fix constantly. And some expanded investment, of course, that's what utility directors everywhere want to ask is give me more money to fix stuff and make everything perfect. Maybe not the Cadillac, but at least let me get the Chrysler Sebring or something. Utilities beginning to expand its internal capability to reduce overall maintenance costs. This is what I talked about before. I was getting a dump truck, I was getting the backhoe. Our backhoe operators have been working. We did a lot of work out the landfill, leveling a whole bunch of stuff state regulators had problems with. We made it into a training event. Jonathan and his guys, and even Tori and myself actually went there. I've used the backhoe lots, but we had guys learning to use the backhoe, and we did it, functionally to level out stuff on the landfill that state regulators had been saying was wrong. Fill in holes, clean up a bunch of stuff. It was great practice, and for us guys starting to get trained on it. So we've tried to use it dual purpose, training function, and also to take care of a regulatory problem for our landfill. So the guys are getting more, competent. And we expect to start doing a line repair or two here shortly. So, and then of course I'd love for y'all to give me 400 more employees, additional staffing, so I can do everything today and sleep when we aren't doing anything. Anyway, I appreciate your good nature. If you have any questions or if any of the slides bring up questions, I think tried to put these in here for your reference, the maps and stuff. There's some details in there. There's one of the Windsor VAC system. There's one of the sewer systems up in the Newport area, the water systems Newport area. Tried to give you a breakdown so you could see any components of it and pretty much have some kind of visual idea. You will note that in here at least a couple of the systems we took possession of, and we really have no idea. A couple of the smaller ones, we have no idea where the water lines are. And Tori and I were talking today about it. It would be a wild guess to put down on a drawing where we think the water lines are, because truthfully we don't know, and luckily we have a decent guy that can locate lines for us, and so if we have to go out there and do work, we have to have him go out and locate the line for us to be able to do that. So with that, questions?
The water line breaker leak that you had at Sugar Hill Road 17, what was that, maybe a month or two ago? Give or take.
A month ago.
About right, yeah.
How long, any idea how long it had been leaking and how much water we may have lost, or was it not substantial, and obviously it seemed like it got repaired pretty quickly also.
It was significant, but from what Jonathan described to me, it was found suddenly, so I don't think it was it's not like the one we had on Brewer's Neck last summer. It wasn't anything like that. We weren't seeing the water tank like we did last summer, where the water tank and Bartlett tank basically draining out, and he's calling me and saying, Dave, something's going on, the tank's draining down, we can't figure out where the water's going. We didn't have anything like that.
Have y'all looked at the area of Spady Way and Lorianne? The wet spot that keeps coming up even though it hadn't rained?
Okay,
Coming up through the sidewalk? You may want to take a look.
I warned him that if he came, that he was going to get asked questions directly.
Right there at the corner of Royal Farms,
Oh, yeah.
at the sidewalk in the corner. You may want to take a look at that.
Yes, sir. He knows I'm asking about when we leave. Any other questions?
It appears to be a leak on Burrows Bay Road when you're coming from Smithfield, you make the right turn.
Yeah, did you saw my email about that?
Did that come in today? I apologize.
Yeah, I sent him a note about it today.
Okay,
Don't know yet.
right.
But it's right by Burrows Bay, and
Second house on the right-hand side when you're going down, right beside the road. And they've been out there and did that repair several times, I think. The same location.
it's
Going
leaking
down Burrows
again.
Bay to the beach.
Yeah.
No, as soon as you turn on Burrows Bay, it's probably about maybe 50 yards on the right-hand side.
I'm thinking that's the only one that's got a water line going down to the beach. Is that close to the house that burned down?
Yeah, yeah.
That spot has given us some issues. We've dug up, it's like, it breaks every couple of feet past it. After a few months, we'll make repair and go, oh, water's welling back up. I mean, it's just the age of the line. We just keep finding leaks. Every time we make repair, it stretches somewhere else and it comes up in another spot.
Sounds like we might be replacing a 20 or 30-foot segment this time around.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Any other questions?
I guess
Thank you.
there's only one other thing. I guess just kind of goes full circle of why this was brought up. Windsor's system, sewer system, vacuum system, sitting down eventually with the right people, with you being our experts and the town experts, on what we do about that system for another 10 years, 20 years, 30 down the road, and whether or not or how it be a possibility that there's a handoff to the town, so that's very consistent with the town of Smithfield running their own, but being very responsible about it. You know, we've talked a lot about the history of that system, how we understand that it was paid for and those kind of things. I think it's important that our citizens know that, because I think one would just assume that that system was paid for with rates or something along the line, et cetera, and it's not. It's very complicated. But I guess the point in bringing it up is we're going to need to take a step forward at some point in time to look at that system and how we make sure it's around for the next generations to come, and also address areas of the county that have very limited options for our citizens. Talk about affordable housing for people that already live here. And when you get to be in your 60s, 70s, or 80s, whatever, and you've got a sewer system that's failing that you put in the 1970s, new, I believe that's where government kind of comes in and helps you out, but very responsibly, obviously. So I guess I would just bring that up to where it's up to the board, but it seems to me we need to start moving. And I don't mean I'm just using that as a target area, talking about some of the DSD areas, but there's others in the county to where we come up with a plan, because in the capital budget, there's really nothing for sewer expansion. And I know that's hard, particularly because I mentioned earlier, we subsidize quite a bit of the water with our operating budget. And if that wasn't the case, then that would free up that funding for things like sewer expansion and all, and water expansion, quite honestly, but it just doesn't at this time. So I don't really, obviously, I don't have the answers. I'm not the smartest person in the room, but we need to get our experts in the room from the towns, maybe reach to the outside if the board is willing to, make those adjustments with county administration, to where we sit down with the right experts, bring in some other experts that y'all might know that we need to kind of hammer out a plan.
So we have done a little bit of that. That's what I kind of covered a little bit, is what I call our Windsor vacuum system recovery. Right now, part of that's been that sending guys to training, replacing the pots, doing some internal repairs, changing how it's operated. We've covered this. The training function has been no small deal with our guys understand how to run it. So right now, we've gotten like one of those legs open back up, but really looking at this and what we've sort of got planned out and asking for in the CIP for the next 3 to 4 years, I think that at least 3 of the legs can be back into full function, the pump station be mostly recovered within 3 years, and maybe by the 4th year, that 4th leg could open up. So I think we have right now something that gets us close to maybe what you're talking about within 4 years, and I have discussed that. I think Mr. Ely participated in that discussion with William Saunders. I think, Don, you're clearly aware of that. So I think mentally we were trying to move us towards that to get the system functional and stable anyway, just because right now it's a clear limiting factor for them, even for infills within their town. So
Because the meeting that we had with the town, and we kind of tapped on that a little bit about them taking over, but I wouldn't want to give it, let them take it over at the condition it's in right now.
Right.
I mean, it would be, in our best interest to get it up to a working place where we know it's in good working condition, and then maybe we could have a real serious conversation about them doing like they did at Smithfield, take the system over. But as of right now, but we need to get to a plan together that we can get it that way.
Set them up for success.
that's what we're trying to do. And we
And I know
have,
y'all have been working on it.
Airvac is the company that designed it and have serviced it for many years, and I don't want to denigrate them. Maybe we didn't ask them to help or whatever, but just recently in the last 3 to 6 months, we've really pushed them hard. There's also a competitor, a company called FlowVac, that also we're taking and buying some of their parts, and between the two of them, both of them are giving us training and making recommendations of how to improve the system, and we're trying to take advantage of all those and pick smartly. We're not, one of them wanted us to put in a $50,000 antenna in Windsor and blah, 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 and I'm like, I'm not doing that yet. Or you got to show me that your system's functioning and there's a reason to do that. We're not going to just invest $50,000 more for a radio system that doesn't improve the functionality. We got to get the functionality right. So we've got those guys engaged and trying to help us, and our guys getting the training is key. They went to one training this past week. We're going to send them to the other company's training, in another month. And between the two of them, our guys already are coming back saying, man, they understand it so much better and how the system should work. And so I think that's part of it. For 10 years or more, we haven't had anybody that's known how to run a vacuum system, because it's just not the normal thing you see around here. And our guys just, we've taken initiative too. Our guys, Jonathan and a bunch of his guys went over. Yorktown has like 8 of these things. So we went over and visited them and had them show us around their systems and all. In Virginia Beach, we've talked to them on the phone. They run at least 1 or 2 systems at the beach. The guys that run Dare County, a couple of the systems down there, I've talked to them a lot on the phone, recommendations, them making suggestions of how us to collect it. So we're taking real active engagement to try and make it just what you want, which is to be able to potentially hand it over. But like
It would
Mr.
probably
Ely
be a good
says,
idea to even get ones of some of their utility people that they have now, probably get them a little bit more involved in it, and maybe, maybe y'all like to come see what you're getting into, so.
we have offered that a little bit. I think they're pretty limited. That would be another challenge for them, is
Well,
if
yeah,
they take
they
over, they're
are
gonna have to
limited.
hire somebody that's
Yeah.
competent. And I mean, I don't know that one of our guys would want to be handed off to the town.
Yeah.
He probably would not be thrilled about that, so they would have to take time to get there.
Yeah.
I'm passionate about trying to get that right though, because I can see us making a difference with that pretty quickly.
Appreciate it.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
much.
We need to take a 5-minute break. I do anyway. We reconvene.
Relatively will be an understatement. Thank you, sir. Good evening, Supervisors. Mike Frickenese, Director of Isle County Parks and Recreation. And tonight I'm going to present our strategic plan to you. So a little backstory here. I've been waiting for the county's comprehensive plan, strategic plan to be in place in order to move forward with this, as well as our department's master plan. And that's so all of these can be in alignment. So those, our master plan, comprehensive plan, and the strategic plan from the county are inputs to this. And hopefully it's all in complete alignment with everything that you had in mind for the county. So what we've done for our strategic plan is broken it up into what we call core service areas. The county's strategic plan uses priority areas. Ours are core service areas. Another way to look at that is this is what we do. These are the services that we offer: athletics, camps, recreation centers, classes, the county fair, permitting and rentals, senior programs, special events, therapeutic recreation, and maintenance of all of our facilities. So we have goals for each one of these core service areas that together makes up our strategic plan. Now, along with the county strategic plan, comprehensive plan, and our department master plan, those inputs, we also conducted a SWOT analysis with stakeholders for more input into this plan. Started with all of our staff in Parks and Recreation Department, also went to the Commission on Aging, Commission on Adults with Disabilities to do a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And with those commissions, it wasn't just what they were responsible for. We asked them to provide us input for all things Parks and Recreation. And consequently, I believe we've created a plan that allows us to guide what we do as a department for the next 5 to 10 years, and also focuses on very slow and steady growth. So instead of going through every one of those core services areas, I'll just go through a couple of them for you so you can get a sense of what the plan looks like and how we use it. Here's a great example: athletics. This would be youth and adult sports. So now, after analyzing all those inputs, we've come up with a goal for athletics: strengthen and grow athletic programming while remaining competitive and accessible. And each one of these core service areas has strategies. What you might also see is objectives in other strategic plans. So our youth and adult athletic programs has strategies to expand youth and adult leagues, improve field conditions, for example, lighting and restroom access, partner with other agencies in order to reduce competition and fill in gaps in services, and introduce things like flexible league formats. And that just means we're finding more and more, not just us, but most parks and recreation agencies are finding more and more with sports that they want something that's a little bit more flexible, meaning as far as their time and commitment. Instead of committing to a league where I have to have 11 people on the field and I have to practice so many times a night and so many games, well, maybe we could just do tournaments, or maybe you could just do pop-up events. Some of our core services areas also have what we call leverage here, meaning these are things that are going to assist us, that are already in place, that are going to assist us with meeting our goal, our strategies in order to meet our goals. Like this one, for example, strong community interest. Isle of Wight County has a very strong interest in youth, especially sports. It's very common, you know, which sports are more popular at which times and which ones are kind of starting to dwindle, varies, but it's very popular with all parks and recreation agencies. In fact, the National Recreation and Parks Association says that at least 80 to 90% of all parks and recreation agencies throughout the country offer youth sports. So there's a very strong interest in us doing this. We do have existing facilities and partnerships. Our KPIs, key performance indicators, these are values that we would use to measure progress towards our strategies and towards the goals. For example, measuring league participation numbers. And we keep all those in a monthly report and annual report, and in our recreation management software, we can analyze what's happening with league numbers. Like, for example, soccer has been going up the last few years. Field usage rates, so how often are they being permitted, or how often are we using them for our programs, and customer satisfaction. We do surveys for all programs and events when they're finished, and then we analyze the results for those and determine what we can do to improve. So that's a great example. Let me show you one more example here. But again, each one of them has goals and strategies. County Fair is another really good one, another very interesting one. The goal of our County Fair core service area is to enhance the County Fair as a signature community event. Strategies to make that happen: increase vendor and sponsor participation, improve marketing and regional outreach, expand entertainment and family-friendly activities, strengthen partnerships, and expand volunteer opportunities. And there's some excellent leverage with the County Fair: strong community buy-in and established event foundation. What that means is the County Fair is a great example of a hallmark event that adds to the culture of the community. So when people think of the county, along with some of the parades and maybe the 4th of July, they also think of the County Fair. And that adds to the memories of the fair, adds to the culture of the community. So it's extremely important. KPIs, or how we would measure this: attendance numbers, we track those attendance numbers. And now, as things are getting more and more electronic, and we're gradually moving away from cash, it becomes even easier to do that. Vendor participation and sponsorship revenue. Those are ways that we can track that. So how do we ensure that this isn't just another plan that sits on the shelf and collects dust? What's going to happen in the Parks and Recreation Department is that during each one of our executive team meetings, and that's where I meet with all the managers every other month, this is going to be on that agenda, that meeting agenda. We're going to go through and review the strategic plan. Also, during one-on-one meetings every other week, I meet with the managers and we'll discuss their part of the strategic plan, and we'll use the performance evaluation system. So all employees get evaluated annually, and when you write a new performance evaluation, you create goals for them for the following year. We can add into those goals things that they're responsible for on the strategic plan. And then our department will have an annual review. And Don wasn't kidding when he said this would be extremely brief. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Or about anything Parks and
Do you
Recreation.
have a baseline report for the core service area KPIs?
Do I have a baseline report, meaning like the numbers?
Yeah, for each core service area, you say you're gonna track the KPIs. Do you already have measured where it started?
So when I got here, there was a 2003 strategic plan, and it looks very different than this. And my impression when I came was it was done, and there really wasn't anything left to track. So that's kind of a roundabout way of saying this is going to establish a foundation for that moving forward, if that makes sense.
So you're gonna start measuring these things. You haven't been
Well,
to this point.
so yes, yes and no, ma'am. So for the strategic plan, these KPIs will begin measuring for this, but we do already measure things like attendance numbers, rental information. We have a monthly report. So if anybody said to me, hey, can you show me your rental information for Nike Park Rec Hall over the last 2 or 3 years, we can pull that stuff. So we do have that. We have participation numbers for youth sports going back several years. So we do have that. But that was never made a part of not never, but it hasn't been a part of a goal for a strategic plan. Increase the numbers, fill in gaps.
In youth camps, stuff like that, that over the period of years, has that increased? Does that increase by having youth camps? Like I think
Yes.
y'all just had one not long ago.
Summer camp, for
Yeah.
example, summer camp, sir?
Yeah,
Right, and we're actually in the last week of summer camp right now.
right.
We've got one more week to go. So that's kind of an interesting one. There is some room to grow in youth sports, for example. We can't grow too much because then it starts to impact our direct costs. What we spend, the more kids we have, the more games we have, the more officials we need, the more uniforms we need, the more awards we need, that starts to add up.
Right.
Summer camps, because of the facility and the staffing, is capped at a certain number. We're not going to go over 100 at Carrollton Elementary School unless we get more and add another space, for example. And they're both full. And ever since I've been here, both of our
Is it
summer
any
camp
point
sites
where
are
you
full.
need to raise that cap to get more precipitation, I guess?
There is a huge need for quality, affordable childcare, especially during the summers.
Yeah.
And if we could meet that, we definitely would. About 2 years ago, we increased the numbers for Windsor. Were limited because of the facility, the space. So the occupancy rate, you can only have so many kids in the Arrowhead Room. That's it.
Yeah.
So that number's capped. We made a decision a couple years ago because we are constantly getting calls, hey, this summer camp I can't afford it. Yours has a lot more value. So we increased numbers. We went up 15 more. But that also means we have to have more staff. So we're not a licensed child care facility
Right.
like the YMCA is licensed. So according to the
Yeah.
state, you have to have a certain ratio
Yeah.
of staff to camper. But we try to meet those ratios. So if we increase the number of campers, we have to
Yeah,
increase the
I
number of
understand.
employees.
I understand.
There's another part of that that also seemingly happens, is during the summertime when there's these camps and stuff, some of the other programs have to be put on hold, if you will. The RISE program doesn't happen in the summertime because they have to do these camps. So people like my son and others that enjoy once a week getting together, some of them, it's the only opportunity they have to socialize, and the staff has done an excellent job with it. They can't be but one place at a time. So he has to make a difficult decision on the numbers and stuff that, it seems to me that you have to make a difficult decision.
Yeah.
Large people want to have their kids somewhere while they're at work during the summertime. So these adults with disabilities, they just don't have the programs in the summertime. So when we're looking at budget time, and recreational therapist originally was brought up by this board. It was something that was being done over in Suffolk, wondered why we couldn't do it here. We were educated by the director at the time. And this board took the position of hiring a recreational therapist. And that's how that job came to be, with the intent that we would service the whole population with disabilities. And we talked about disabilities back then, and that it's not always just people that are born a certain way, or it's all of us going to have a disability if we live long enough. And that was really the goal. But at the same token, when you only have your staff, a lot of them wear various hats to make the system work. They can only be one place at a time. So I just point that out as we advocate for more programs, just realize that there is some repercussions on some of the other programs, that some of these our citizens have very limited opportunities. They don't have an option to go to a better program than yours, or not as good a program as yours, cheaper or whatever. They have no other options. And in the summertime, they sit at home. So,
Yes, sir, that's a great point. We do an annual life cycle review, so we look at our programs and try to determine where they are in a life cycle, and if they are programs that are not popular anymore, nobody's signing up for them, so it's a waste of resources, we'll cancel them. We hate to stop a program that is full and has a waiting list, which is something we have to do for the RISE in the summertime. And that therapeutic recreation specialist does summer camps. And by the way, so we stole Suffolk's therapeutic recreation specialist in order to make it happen here.
still a couple, anyway. Yeah.
Few folks from South.
Yeah, man, we
Trade
won't
it.
mention any names, though.
So the team member that's the recreation therapist came from Suffolk,
Yes, ma'am.
but that person has to do summer camp, so you cancel the RISE all summer?
So what she has developed is a summer camp for children and adults with disabilities. There's two of them. One goes for about 4 weeks, and then the other one goes for 4 weeks. So during the summertime, there is a summer camp specifically for adults and children with disabilities. So the RISE program is put on hold during that time period, and then it starts up again after that. But yes, that's so she can be there.
Mike, you might want to touch on the fact that, because I thought okay, if that person's not there, we can kind of just plug anybody into that slot. No, it is a specialized field
Right.
where there has to be a qualified or certified person to do certain types of programming.
That's right, a certified therapeutic recreation specialist, right, yes, sir. And that's why it was difficult. That person is out on FML right now, so it was difficult to keep the RISE program going. Fortunately, Western Tidewater Community Service Board has been able to provide a CTRS for us, but only for 4 Fridays to make that happen. And she also, our CTRS also, the idea is to increase accessibility for children and adults with disabilities, and right, that's all the way up through seniors who end up developing either cognitive or physical disabilities, access to our programs. So she doesn't just do hers, she'll go and try to evaluate or assist parents with children who want to participate, who have disabilities, who want to participate in sports, for example. Okay, so here are some ways that your child can participate, here are some tools or information that we can provide to the coach to help you with that child, to make sure that, and the referees, we've done that with them as well.
So is the RISE program suspension more a function of the FEMLA leave than the fact that they have to help with summer camp?
No, so 2 different
Yeah.
things, ma'am.
Oh,
So
okay.
right now, she is out on FMLA. So, but even if she were here during the summertime, in order to make the summer camps happen, the summer camps specifically for, there's 2 different camps. The summer camps specifically for the children with disabilities, she has to be there for that, which means the RISE has to be put on hold.
So back to my question about the KPIs, maybe I should just ask it pose it as a question, and that is, may I have a copy of the dashboard of your KPIs once you put it together, addressed in the strategic plan?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then I had a follow-up from last year when we talked about your strategic plan. I recall that, you know, you had the percentage of acres split up by recommended, you know, rates or acres per 1,000 citizens, et cetera. You remember that grid? And it was split into like 4 different acreage categories. And I recall that the general park inventory of community spaces did not seemingly include many of the new, maybe not so new public spaces that are proffered as part of large neighborhoods. And so I wondered if you had a chance to revisit either of those things.
So to revisit, since our master plan was created, to revisit any proffered park spaces that came online
Yeah, I guess
since
I'd just
then.
like to see an update as to where we are for the percentage of acres per 1,000 citizens in each of the categories, to see where we are in that and if we need to make changes. I mean, I recall there's a certain number of acres per 1,000 citizens that's appropriate overall, but when you split it out into the 4 categories, really we're taking a bunch of credit for thousands of acres that are the Blackwater Reserve, and we are underserving when it comes to community open spaces, greenery, green spaces, recreation facilities, which you've said in your strategic plan as a weakness, and that some of our facilities are older, et cetera. But, you know, kind of subset to that is the fact that I also recall looking at the number of acres for community green space and like the park, you know, the new Phase 6 portion of Cypress Creek, right? In the last few years, there's a huge open area, right? That's a part of the development that was proffered by the builder. I don't recall when I asked for the detail of those different community green spaces and parks, I don't recall that areas like that were included in your inventory. So it might have artificially lowered the percentage of acres that you had per 1,000 citizens when you could be like, A, reconciling that, and B, taking credit for some of the gains that have been made.
I think maybe part of the question is, do we include privately or other owned properties that are not either owned or managed by us? And that, I was gonna say, I think that was
example,
part of the
HOA.
challenge, because
No.
We don't have
It
any
did,
budget.
last year it did include HOA areas, I
So
remember.
I think you bring up a really good point that this board has had to face, and that is, and I'm thinking about even some of the green space, a lot of them are woods, because they've never been, nobody did anything with them. But we've been asked to take what was supposed to be recreational space, a lot, that was proffered in 1970 something, and make it to where somebody can build a house on it now and sell it to somebody, when the whole intent was, and now some of those lots may, you know, anyone that knows what they're doing may look at it and say it's just not suitable for what we need right now, but I don't know, how would we even know what inventory exists
You had a
throughout the
list.
county?
He had a list in the
But I don't
master
remember
plan.
seeing the one on Cherry Grove Road, for example, on
No,
that
I
list.
know, and that's kind of
That's what
how
I'm
this
saying.
came up, is the Cherry Grove Road one was done away with, right? Returned back to a buildable lot, et cetera.
Yeah, it was
And
added to
I was like,
added to a lot.
It
yeah.
used to be as a part of the percentage of those
Right.
acres. That wasn't controlled by the county, that was a private
Right.
HOA type green space. And I just remember thinking about it, and since you're giving your report, I thought I'd ask you about it again. Perhaps you have to do some research.
Yeah, we can maybe coordinate with Amy to see if they have a list or inventory, but some of that stuff goes back probably 40, 50 years.
A list of what has been proffered as recreational space.
Otherwise, there's no, I mean, what's the point in, if the developer comes to us today and they proffer a space, and we say sure and move on, and it just sits there forever, and 20 years from now, somebody wants to build a house on it, so they come to the next board and say, nobody uses it, kids play on it, they don't play on it, should play on it, whatever, and then it turns right back into a lot. Back years ago, when it was being, people were looking at it, they're thinking it's gonna be great, it's gonna be a green space.
Yeah, we have to be able to say, the master plan says that 15% of our acreage, I'm making this up,
Yeah.
but 50% of the overall community recreation space acres should be in this type of park or space. And so what's our justification for letting it go, right? Or making a change if we don't have it properly inventoried?
Or requiring that a developer put in a certain type of amenity. Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, we can. Yeah, we
And
can
that's a good point, Don. So it does break it down by neighborhood parks, community park, district parks, and how do we match that? So if you had something in the HOA, and they didn't develop it, that would be the question. Do you want us to develop it and create a neighborhood park that we would maintain?
I just think you take credit for the space being a neighborhood park.
Yeah, it may be that we require
Not that you have
them
to
to
develop
develop
it.
it, but then we
Right,
include
either
it in
or.
our inventory of offerings.
And I will say, in our process now, in when they're proffering for their rezoning, there's language about when the amenities are gonna be constructed.
Right.
Before the 50th CO or something like that. So I'm afraid the old ones, you know, in fact, I know that there are a number of 1970s developments that the county required them to build the tot lot, the playground, that never got used. It was built, but never got used, and they haven't come back to ask for them to be added to anything else because it's not big enough to be a lot. Maybe an adjoining property owner could take it over, but it was determined that that's not the way to go, that the county can't require certain amenities. It's proffered back, but I think moving forward, I think that we have a control on that because the clubhouse is to be built by a certain point, whatever the amenities are. So I think that is moving forward. It should be able to be inventoried as well because we know what's on their site plans.
And my last question has to do with just a social media post that I saw this week about a citizen wondering about a pickleball league, and then there was 50,000 answers, and most people said the closest one is at Huntington Park across the bridge. So I didn't know if you were able to speak to how we're thinking about addressing that need.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. I thought Mr. Ely was going to say something. What I would like to do is convert one of the tennis courts at Nike Park into 2 pickleball courts. So we have 4 courts. So we've got 2 at Riverview and we've got 2 at Nike Park. I don't think pickleball would work well at Riverview, but and Nike Park still gets used for tennis a lot, but I think that that would make a good fit for 2 pickleball courts. So the plan was to use Parks and Capital Maintenance budget. That's the $150,000 you give me every year to maintain facilities or repair facilities, to see if I can make that happen. So they would have,
Fiscal
they
year?
would have a dedicated pickleball, 2 dedicated pickleball courts.
Do you have the staff to run a league, or would it be a citizen-led league?
I don't have the staff.
Yeah,
to
that's
run
a whole
it, but
different
it could be-
conversation.
It could very easily be a citizen-run league
I'm
there.
sure citizens, is probably citizens that would definitely put a club together, pickleball.
Yeah, I just saw it come up this week, so
It's
again,
got to be a big.
you're here, I thought I would ask.
Well, yeah, we'll take a look, because we offered some things in the past, and folks weren't thrilled because it wasn't going to be exclusively for pickleball. I think they didn't like the fact that we were going to stripe it so you could eat.
We did stripe them,
So,
and
yeah.
it hasn't gone over well with tennis people. So I'm very upset about that. When you stripe for both tennis and pickleball, the pickleball lines interfere with sight for tennis. That's what they tell me anyway. So these would be dedicated pickleball courts.
And you're planning that for this fiscal year?
I'd like to try to see if I can find out about the cost for this fiscal year,
Thank you.
if that can be done.
One thing I would like to say is, I do appreciate Parks and Rec and yourself
Oh,
for
thank you, sir.
getting with the food bank and setting that all up. It has been a lot of people have sent me emails and saying that they really appreciate Parks and Rec getting into it, meeting with them and setting it up and have a place for them to go. So I think it's going to be well used.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and Mr. Ely's referring to and by the way, the Food Bank of Southeastern Virginia, that is a very well-run organization. They were very easy to work with,
Yep.
and they're the ones that helped us make that happen and set
Right.
it up. So the one in Franklin is going to shut down,
Yep.
and it's going to become a mobile pantry at the Heritage Park. So we don't even have to go into the fairgrounds. It'll be
Right.
at Heritage Park every month, the first Friday of every month, except for when we have special events out there.
Right.
And so they'll have that Windsor location, and then they'll have the Luter Sports Complex. So
Yeah.
the Food Bank of Southeastern Virginia will have those 2 locations.
Maybe it'll stop that. I feel sorry for her if she's putting canned goods in that little hutch up in Windsor. And at 90 to 100 degrees out there, that's probably not the best place to put it outside in that little hutch. But anyway, she's doing what she thinks is good, and it is. I mean, she has helped a lot of people by doing that. So she fills it up, and it's gone within 6 or 7 hours. So,
And I did want to give kudos to Mike and to Bill for kind of taking the lead on that.
yeah.
And somewhat in conjunction, we have issued a challenge to all of our neighboring communities in Hampton Roads for a peanut butter and jelly
Yeah, I saw that.
challenge. So we're trying to roll that out with the other communities for 2 reasons. One is more important reason is to help those families who are struggling right now
Yep.
in our community, and to kind of partner with the food bank to do that. But the other thing is, it's the right thing to do, and it's a good thing for us to
Yeah.
do, in terms of serving the community. So we appreciate that opportunity.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I would like to say this, and not to prolong our meeting, but my favorite place, I have some concerns. I'm going to generate a list, and I'm going to email Don, I'm going to email you and copy Mr. Webb, because he has been trying to keep me abreast to what's the status of the project. So, but it's some low-cost things that I think we can accomplish down Tyler's Beach to make that place a better place for the people to go out and enjoy the beach. I travel there, I mean, I'll go down sometime on Saturdays, and you see families cooking out, fishing, I mean, having a good time.
Very busy.
But I think it's some amenities that we could put there that don't cost a lot of money, that'll make the place a much better place for me and everybody else. So I'll generate the list,
Okay.
okay? All
Anything
right,
else?
no more questions, we'll move on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Board of Supervisors Strategic Planning Retreat,
Yes, sir. Mr.
short and sweet.
Chairman, you all have talked about your retreat a couple of times. We had a date set, but that did not work out. And so you, at your last meeting, discussed September 3rd as a date. Actually, you threw out two dates, the 3rd and the 10th. When we checked with the facilitator, he was able to make the 3rd work. And so you all would need to hopefully do two things tonight. One is to set that date as the date for your retreat, but also you would have a work session that you would need to cancel that week. So just throwing that out for your consideration.
Did we pick a location?
You all told us you wanted to do it in our new training room.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
So I'll make a motion to cancel the work session for September 3rd.
All right, any readiness, madam?
Mr. Ely?
Yes.
Mr. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Acree?
Yes.
Mrs. Roundtree?
Yes.
Chairman Jefferson?
Yes.
I'll make a motion.
I was gonna say you might want to establish a time as well.
Well, I was just canceling the other one. So what's the time for the retreat? Because that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, yes.
9 to,
8, I think you said.
You don't have to have an end time, just a beginning
Yeah,
time.
yeah, just beginning time.
Beginning
I
9?
would say 9. And we'll have some.
So I'll make a motion that on September 3rd, the Board of Supervisors hold retreat at 9, starting at 9 a.m. at the clerk's office. Is that
Training
right?
room.
Training
The
room?
old clerk's office training room.
Madam?
Mr. Ely?
Yes.
Mr. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Acree?
Yes.
Mrs. Roundtree?
Yes.
Chairman Jefferson?
Yes.
Did you want to ask about staffs and?
Oh, yes, staff's involvement. So we just want to be clear, I've heard from you all, some mixed feedback in terms of staff's involvement. Whether you want them there all day, a portion of the day, just what. I think I pointed out to you all last time, the discomfort on the part of staff in terms of coming in like mid-conversation, in terms of what you all were doing. And so just
All day's
again.
fine.
All
I
day.
think they should be there all day, but I'd also
We're gonna
like
be
to
there all day.
consider
No, that's fine. We just want to be
including
clear.
the constitutional officers.
And then if something comes up, you
Send
can
them an
ask.
invite
Yeah.
to
No,
include sheriff.
Yeah, we can certainly do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
We just need to be mindful of, and we got plenty of capacity for you all in the constitutionals as well as staff. Once you get past that, it's probably gonna get a little tight in that room.
I'm good.
Okay. That's good. So, you done?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I got,
Item-
I got one thing I'd like to bring up, if you don't mind.
Come on.
The solar farm fence,
Yes.
over at the Windsor Solar Farm. And I took pictures of it, I hadn't showed them to Mr. Aker yet, but I will. If you haven't seen it, you probably ought to go by there and take a look at it. What they call it is they say it is a ag fence. And a ag fence, and whether it's supposed to look like this or not, I don't know. But, that's what's going around all these solar farms on the road. And, it's got, you want to see it?
I think I know what you're talking about, but yeah.
Yeah, so Mr. Ely and I've talked a little bit about
It's-
this, and so we're gonna take a look at the specifics. There's landscaping and some other things that would
It's gonna be
go.
landscape in front of it, but, well, like I,
But I
I
think
mean,
the
it's got
concern
three
was the
strands.
height of the fence and a couple other things.
It's got three strands of barbed wire at the top, you know, and it's welded wire behind it, 6 foot. So, and, I guess they said they were trying to get up to the level of what these solar panels are huge. But this is not gonna cover it.
So I thought because I follow what you're getting at, but I thought that there was, whoever regulates that says that you have to have a certain type of fencing and that ag fencing was supposed to be, they used this term, I want to say invisible or something. They used some term that basically it draws your eye to the wood fence to get your eye off the barbed wire and all the metal fence that is required by regulation. And I don't say that that's
It's a
right.
landscape feature.
Yeah, and there's actually a vegetative buffer that goes in front of that fencing, so it's multi-layered
Right.
buffering, but
And then half of it dies.
that's
Right.
problematic at all.
But we're enforcing that.
Exactly.
And not to take away from what we're talking about solar farms, but that's happens with businesses too. You have a business go in, nice green shrubbery, looks great, next thing you know, half of them die, and then somebody else takes over, they mow down the other half, and I know of a gas station that's might be at the entrance of Ware County that's used to
Well, I
have
know-
beautiful landscaping back 30 years
Well,
ago.
I know in Suffolk, I don't know about Isle of Wight, I've never did work as far as having to finish a job in Suffolk by putting up shrubs and everything. But in Suffolk, you know, you put out a bond. And in a bond, if any of those shrubs go down, they'll tell you, you know, you have to replace them until they're living for a year. And if you don't, you pull away from that bond, and they'll go out there and transplant them for you and take the money out of the bond and pay for it.
We do that.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
It's
That's
a
what I'm saying.
two-year maintenance bond.
Yeah, yeah, and they have to be replaced.
But once it dies after that, you're out of luck. All right.
After that,
They're supposed to maintain it in
But I mean,
perpetuity.
and
but-
most
but we've lost that.
contractors
But
put
I-
about a 2-year warranty on most of their greenery, if you will,
Yeah.
regardless of the bond, but anyway.
But I mean, the fence is just, and it's a wood fence over here. What's
This one up here.
Yeah, but that's a 4-foot fence, and it's got 3 boards on it, which is nice, and it's got a chain link fence sitting behind it, which is fine. This, I don't know.
I haven't walked up close to the one over there.
So this is something that Amy can look at.
It's, they have started putting it up, and, I just wanted, I've had a lot of people have been calling me for a week now, since they put this first part up, and I'm just saying, if, the contractor said if anything needs to be done, they would be glad to sit down with the county and change, because they don't like it either, so, I mean,
Okay,
it's.
well, we'll let the county administrator talk
Yeah,
to Amy
yeah,
and
but I
try to
just
get it
wanted-
resolved. All right, we'll
So I'm
move
done.
ahead. Closed meeting.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. You'll need a motion pursuant to Section 2.23711A of the Code of Virginia to move to closed session for the limited purpose of a discussion concerning a prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry, namely Project Breeze, where no previous announcement has been made of the business or industry's intention of locating or expanding its facilities in the community pursuant to subsection 5.
So moved.
Madam?
Mr. Ely?
Yes.
Mr. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Akery?
Yes.
Mrs. Roundtree?
Yes.
Chairman Jefferson?
Yes. We'll reconvene. Madam?
Mr. Ely?
Yes.
Mr. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Akery?
Yes.
Mrs. Roundtree?
Yes.
Chairman Jefferson?
Yes.
Make a motion certify that the close,
Uh,
can't do it.
Pursuant to section 2.23712 of the Code of Virginia, a motion certifying that to the best of each member's knowledge and only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements and only such public business matters as identified in the motion to move to closed session were heard.
But you gotta say it just like that, no? So moved.
Madam?
Mr. Ely?
Yes.
Mr. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Akery?
Yes.
Mrs. Roundtree?
Yes.
Chairman Jefferson?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Motion to adjourn.